Hello, my name is Jeff Pagano, and welcome to Harpin on Rugby, where with the help of some fellow fans, I get the chance to harp on what's going on with Leinster, Ireland, and the wider rugby world. First up joining me is someone earning cap number 54. Welcome back to Mr. Conor Cronin.
Thanks, Emil, for having me back.
No problem at all. And also here is our man on the Great Rock of Gibraltar. This is appearance number 35. Hello to Mr. Rich Mifsud.
Good evening, fellas. Good to be back.
Indeed. But listen, for now, we're going to go back to the URC and have a look at just how the run-in is looking for all the teams. We're going to have a sort of a quick, wide look across the league and the remaining matches and how the league is set up. Now, there are 4 rounds of matches left, and I make it 11 teams still in realistic contention for a top 8 finish, and possibly 4 teams in realistic contention for a top 2 finish. So we've kind of divided the league up into 3 blocks, and we'll work our way up from the bottom. In that block of teams, which are kind of, I see 14 points adrift of those above them. There's 3 Welsh teams, and of course Zebra at the bottom and the Sharks. So that's, I think we covered them pretty much enough there. So that moves us up to the middle block, and here is where about a million different things can happen. Since Benetton in 5th place and the Lions in 11th, between them there's just 3 points with both Ulster and Connacht are very much in the mix there now. So that's where a lot can happen, and you know, a lot of them will be playing each other. Pretty much every match is going to count for the next four rounds.
I think that, you know, as much as I said Ospreys might be lucky, I think they are the ones going to benefit most from this run of matches. Yeah, they've got the Bulls away, having just beaten Stormers. I don't think they can do the double there, but they've got the Bulls away, and then they're away to us. But then they've got Dragons in Cardiff. And they'll be looking at that, and they'll be targeting 10 match points for that, and maybe come away with 9 across those 2 games. And if they can get even 1 point out of us or the Bulls, that's what's going to keep them, I think, in knockout rugby. And then I think on the flip side of that, I think Ulster are going to suffer the next few weeks, because they've Benetton, followed by, okay, they've got Scarlets then, but then they've got Leinster and Munster. And I don't see how on current form they can beat anyone there except Scarlets. Now, look, we all know if they come with the right attitude, if they're switched on, if they've got their game plan right, Ulster can be a very, very dangerous side. But it looks very forlorn up there. It looks very like they're just kind of all over the place. They don't know what to do. They don't know why to do it. They're making bad choices on the pitch. There's been a lot of difficulty and a lot of upheaval. I really hope they can get everything sorted, because, you know, again, I know Keego has said it many times about Munster, but it's true of all provinces. You know, a strong Ulster helps us have a strong Ireland, a strong Connacht, a strong Munster. I really want to see Ulster do better, but I'm struggling to see how they'll get through and still be able to qualify for knockout rugby. And then the only other one that's worth a quick mention for me is Benetton. Benetton will have a tough last couple of games with Bulls and Edinburgh. I think they should have enough to go to win against Ulster and the Sharks, but it'll be great to see Benetton in knockout rugby and see, again, they've invested heavily in grassroots over the last number of years, and now we're getting the fruition of that. So it'll be good to see an Italian side. You know, if we get a side from each of the nations into knockout rugby, that just demonstrates how competitive the league is.
Yeah. And what about yourself, Rich? There's other teams in there as well. The Lions and the Stormers are in the mix there.
Yeah, and you know, I'd like to pick up where Conor just left off, and historically, the Celtic League, Pro 12, Pro 14, BKT, URC, whatever you want to call it, in whichever one of its manifestations over the years has been, as you look at it from the outside in, a Mickey Mouse league, pretty much. Because if you're looking at it from the Premiership or the top 14, you're looking at it with a certain or a great degree of condescension. I think that the fact that 1 point separates 6 sides, 3 points separates 7 sides, 5 points separates 8 sides. Says an awful lot about this league. It's extremely competitive. If you're not up for your game, just ask us. If you're not up for your game, you're going to get stuffed, because the quality of the league has improved exponentially. Okay, perhaps not necessarily across the piece, and by across the piece I mean the Welsh sides, I think, have not been up to it. Had they, can you imagine if we were still talking about a very strong Scarlets, a very strong Cardiff, a very strong Dragons and Ospreys? This would be an incredibly tough bastard of a league to win. Sadly, from their perspective, those teams are not up at the races at the moment. But, that middle block of teams, it's so congested in there that it's going to make the last 4 games or 4 sets of fixtures until the end of the regular season very, very interesting from whichever perspective you want to view it. And neither Warriors nor ourselves are a million miles away ahead of this chasing pack.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, any slip-ups, and very quickly, those teams, if they get bonus point wins, what have you, they'll charge up that ladder. So even Lions, who are down there on 39 points, they get a good run of games. They get 20 match points, which is not beyond them. That puts them on 59 points all of a sudden.
Yeah.
So it's and I think
there's a lot that can happen. I mean, I've divvied them up kind of into 3 blocks as if they're kind of mutually exclusive, but there's definitely some scope. There's still some scope for that middle block to even break in and get that home quarterfinal in top 4 for sure. Yeah, definitely. Like you say, if those top teams slip up, but let's have a look at that top 4 now. Leinster now, even despite that disappointing defeat in Joburg, still in first place with 54 points, but just 1 ahead of Glasgow now, who still have to play the bottom club Zebra twice. Although they do have to play at the Bulls, who are also in the mix, they play them in round 16. And of course, at this time of year, we all know we can never rule out Munster, whose win in Pretoria will give them absolutely no fear in those final rounds. So, lads, listen, we have Stormers away next week, Ospreys at home, then finally 2 Interpros with Ulster at the Kingspan before finishing up against Connacht at the RDS. How do we see it?
I think for us, Stormers will be tough. If we could come away with a point there, knowing that Glasgow have the Bulls and the Lions to play, that would be a little more reassuring. I think the Bulls with their 3 home games coming into the end of the season, like, I mean, if you turned around and said, yeah, Leinster are going to have 3 home games in the last 4, actually 4 home games in the last 5 at the end of the season. Sure, it's a conspiracy, and it's all the IRFU running everything, and the IRFU calling the shots for everybody, and there'd be uproar. But it's okay, because they're new to the league, or I don't know what the story is. But it's tough to look at that. It's tough to look and say, how is that fair to have that kind of a run of home games? But they do a lot of traveling, and that's got to be a part of it. So you got to take the good with the bad. Also, though, the idea that Glasgow still have to play Zebre twice is a little bit galling. Like, I'd love to be playing Dragons twice in the next 4 weeks. That'd be great. But we're not. And the teams we have, look, I can't see. I'm looking for 15 points out of those 4 games. And I think the team who will probably make that most difficult will probably be Connacht, based on current form and the idea that, I don't know what it is when Connacht come to us, they are just so much more up for it to play against us than they might be for other teams. There's a real psychology in there of, let's beat these bastards and show them what for. So I'm really looking forward to that game because I
And there's
know it's
every
going to be a
possibility
good
they'll
game.
still have a top 8 chance when they do come to the RDS in that round as well.
Yeah,
So they'll have a lot to play for. Yeah.
100%, 100%. They've a decent run ahead of them, so they've a really good shout. They've got the flip side of what Bulls have. They've got 3 away games in their last 4. It's a bit tough to have to face into. As you said, you can't rule out Munster. Glasgow are only 1 point behind, and we'll expect that after this weekend, Glasgow could be top of the table. Very realistically, could be top of the table and us second. It'll be interesting to see, can the Lions maintain the quality they presented yesterday? When Munster come, it'll be a tough ask for Munster if Lions can. But psychologically, that's a hard thing. And then, I say, having 3 home games, the positive there is that Glasgow are 1 and Benetton are another. Benetton are only 4 points behind them, and Glasgow are only 7 points ahead. So there's a real chance for points to be taken off Glasgow and Bulls to really get up the table if they can make the most out of those couple of games.
Yeah, I mean, just to clear up what you were saying, like a lot of people say if it happened with the IRFU, a lot of people would say it was a conspiracy, and that is exactly what people would be saying if we had multiple home games in the final rounds, or if we got to play one of the weaker teams home and away with 4 matches left. But I mean, that's not to take away it's from the fact as well that it's the way the league is set up. It's 5 nations, 2 hemispheres. Playing from September to May, there's multiple reasons that like to keep we play home and away against the provinces, and we only play all the other teams once, and that goes the same for the Welsh teams. It goes the same for the South African teams, and then of course with only 2 Scots and 2 Italians, they ended up together in one kind of grouping, and they play each other home and away. That's the way it works out. And like I say, we're not complaining about that here. We're just, like we say, we're saying if that it was the flip side, there'd be a lot of people thinking.
If it was the other way around, there would be complaints.
Absolutely.
I understand how it is. I understand why it is. I wouldn't mind us having our South African tour a little earlier in the year. Next year. This is the 2nd year in a row. Maybe is it the 3rd year in a row that we're going down very, very late in the year. It'd be nice to get it over and done with early. And be building from there and not have that big trek to do at the end of the year when you're fighting on 2 fronts. Because we are the only team in that top 4 fighting on 2 fronts. We're the only team with one eye on a semi-final in Croke Park in 2 weeks. And beyond that, we'll be I really, really hope we'll be a team with one eye on another knockout game then as well. No guarantees of that. Northampton have a big say in whether that happens or not. But we are the only team. And I think in fairness to Benetton as well, they've got the same predicament. They're looking at playing Ulster and Bulls and Edinburgh with one eye on a Challenge Cup semi-final as well. So you've said it before about, blocks for this competition and a block for that competition. There's a lot to be said for not having, for being able to look at a trip to South Africa and saying, yeah, let's send these guys because they haven't been in the last 2 years to South Africa. Let's send these guys and not have them worrying about what's happening in 2 weeks' time.
Absolutely. Well, listen, that's brilliant, lads. We're going to leave it there. Many thanks, guys, for coming on and bravely going over that match and a bit more besides. Thanks to Connor and Rich for joining me. Hope to have you both on again soon. Thanks, lads.
Cheers, guys.